Welcome back. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. Our conversation this morning is going to be mainly focused around business development. We're going to be talking about identifying and managing risk in business in a volatile environment. I'm being joined on the program by the Chief Executive Officer, Deon Consulting Services, and the Leadership Development Expert, Tom Olumoya. Good morning, Tom. Thank you so much for coming in. And let me just also mention that Deon Consulting Services is actually based in Washington, D.C., is it?
Actually, our headquarters is in Tampa, Florida, but we have another office in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about businesses generally and look at the risks that, usually come with it. Now, we know that having a business is very challenging, and sometimes it looks as though a risk analysis isn't, done before the business actually takes off. Do you meet a lot of people like that, or do you see a lot of businesses like that?
Absolutely. Really, this is supposed to have been done when they're doing the business plan. When you're having your business plan done, part of it, because you have a lot of paperwork that goes into that, and you spend a lot of hours getting into that. And one of the things that they're supposed to do then is to add the risk part of it, the risk management, to have a forecast of what kind of risk are we anticipating in having this kind of business. So if you now come back without having those plans, it's a lot of work that has to go into it, because we have to go back to the drawing board to see why this was missing, why it wasn't done in the first place.
But then how effective, is the process of identifying, assessing, and then managing this business risk when you actually, make the effort to talk about it?
Well, if the risk is already there, it's now in place prior to you coming to us or when you want to talk about it. Again, we have to settle down and see what kind of risk are you facing in your business? What kind of business are you doing in the first place? Then we take a look, because risk can be a lot of things. It could be your staff, it could be the workforce, it could be human risk, it could be technology, it could be your supplier, it could be Mother Nature problem, it could be your building infrastructure, so it could be a lot of things. So we have to analyze that, and again, we have to put together a set within your business. We have to have a business risk manager who we can work with, and then dissect what's going on with the business and see how we can start to tackle those problems.
But not a lot of people even believe in the business risk managers. They feel that you don't need a business risk manager for you to identify the risk, like you talked about. You talked about technological risk, you talked about workforce risk, you talked about environmental risk. So sometimes you don't necessarily need a risk manager to tell you all of this, because the handwriting is very clear on the wall.
Absolutely. But that's why some of the businesses are failing today, because they neglect to see that part of the risk or that part of their business when they're starting it out. So now we have to come and talk to you about it and say, well, what's the risk we're facing here? Is it that your staff are stealing your goods? Because that's a risk. And that's actually number one risk that we see today. A lot of staff are pilfering or taking things from the business, or maybe your infrastructure is not good enough and something is happening to it. So if you don't have that in place, again, it's going to take you more money, it's going to cost you more money, and it's going to take more time to be able to figure it out, because no one can just come in and say, well, you're facing some risk here. We have to analyze the business itself and see what's going on here. Show us your books. Where's the problem coming from? And again, they're all in stages. We have to figure out the problem. We have to figure out what the impact of this problem on your business. Is it a huge impact, or is it something you can look away from? Because some problems you can walk away from it, but depending on the impact. Yeah, and then after doing all that, then you have to figure out, okay, what are we going to put together to stop this, or at least to make it milder? Sometimes you can't completely stop it, but you can make it reduce the risk, if you will. Then after all that, then we have to start to enforce it. Okay, after enforcing it, you have to see, is the enforcing working? Is it measurable? So there's a lot that goes into business risks.
Okay, now let's bring it to our own environment. For instance, we have some factors, including infrastructure and logistic challenges. These are regarded as very high risk, at least for some businesses who actually have sat down to look at it. But everybody doesn't, have to see the handwriting on the wall to just know that we have these challenges already and it's being dealt with. Now, how can a business factor this into its operations and still stay in business, knowing that these are factors that you have to deal with from the get-go before you start off your business, before you even begin to have employees or begin to collect contracts from outside and all that to do. How can you factor this into your business and make sure that you break even? Because as much as possible, you're not in business it's not a charity business. You're in business to make profit. So how can you factor all those challenges into your business plan and make sure you break even?
Well, again, I see in this environment there's a lot of small businesses, and which is a great thing. And if you fail to add the risk management into your structure right from the beginning, I think there's a lot of companies out here that actually manage risks for businesses. I think it's a good thing to tap into those companies and say, well, I want to put you on standby. Take a look at my company, what's going on with my company right from the get-go. Because with the risk, you don't want to talk about risk when it's already going on. It could cause a shutdown to a business. You want to start looking at it from the outside and foresee those things and call the attention of the businesses to it. So if you fail to have those things in place, and now we have to come talk to you, or you want to go to someone else to talk to you about it, they have to break it down. They have to have people to talk to. They have to come into your company, spend some time with your folks, and see what exactly is going on.
But sorry, Tom, to cut you here.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. It's not as if they're oblivious of the fact that these challenges are there. They have factored this in.
Okay.
But in terms of trying to provide services now to customers, they increase, whatever it is that we're charging a customer. And so the customer now feels, look, if I'm going to be getting this product or this service from you, I feel it's way too expensive. And so at the end of the day, you have tried to factor in your risk costs into your total overhead, and you feel that you're justified to do it, but the customer doesn't feel that way.
Well, when we're talking about risk, you don't have to jack up your price because of risk. It's not justifiable to the customers. If you foresee these things, maybe you need to reduce your overhead. Maybe you need to change your products. Maybe you need to rebrand. Maybe you need to do some sales. Maybe you need to shut some of your expenses down just to make sure your customers are satisfied. See, when we're talking about business risks, it could cost the company a lot of money down the road, but you don't have to make the customer pay for it. When we start to make the customer pay for these things, you're adding more to your risk. Now you're adding more risk because now you might lose some customers to other people. And in Nigeria here, I know people are very competitive. And it's a competitive market out there anyway. So if you don't foresee these things, it's dangerous to businesses. And one other thing I've noticed around here, there's a lot of family business, and a lot of business owners are finding it difficult to let go of authority. So that's
another risk.
It's a big risk. So when you're having a family business, it's a great thing, so you can pass it generation to generation, but you need to factor risk management into it, because you want another generation to have that business. A lot of business owners, they want to sign the checks from $1 million to even 200 naira. That's a risk, because you're wasting so much time and you're not allowing these guys that understand the risk to be able to blossom and to use their expertise. Because all the business owners, most of them, they want to have hands-on. They want to grab everything. It's my business. I own this. But hey, there's a lot of things that are changing out there. So if you don't factor this in, allow your son, your business manager, to actually use what they learn, especially when it comes to business risk, business management risk. It could shut down the business, and it could affect the future of your family.
Now that kind of, well, let's look at it two ways.
Okay.
He's trying to protect his interest.
Right.
And he's worked so hard to bring the business up to where it is.
Right.
And then you're asking him to allow somebody who probably doesn't share the same ideas with him, but maybe at the start seemed like he shares the same ideas with him, come in, and at the end of the day, he runs down the business.
Well, I understand your point, but again, this is a risk we all have to take. I mean, if you have a business, right now I'm here, thousands of miles away from home, I have someone running my business. So it's still a risk, but you have to be on top of your game. You have to make sure they're reporting to you. There has to be a reporting tool where they can report back to you. You still see what's going on with the business. I mean, that's a lot of companies here, they hire a CEO to take care of their company. because they don't want to. They don't understand the risks that are out there. So if you own a very small business, there's a lot of things you can put into place. Checking on things, make sure you hire the right people to work for you. Here we're family oriented, because your cousin want to work, you want to hire your cousin, regardless if your cousin have the expertise of your business, because you don't want to offend somebody. But when you look at the business side of it, you need someone who actually understands the business, who understands the risk. You might want to take the risk aspect of your business and let somebody else run the day-to-day activity while you're taking a look at what can happen, what's happening, what's the future like for your business. So it's a two-way street. So you can't just say, well, I can't hands off, I can't bring somebody in. There's a lot of intellect in this country. There's a lot of intellect, that surrounds the business here. We just have to let them do their jobs.
Okay, so now let's talk about how organizations should actually look at risk planning. Should they provide a clear direction on risk management to ensure consistent performance, that is, make it an integral part of planning and day-to-day operations of not just the individuals, but everybody in the organization, and how they do their business, even with their clients?
Well, yes, absolutely. That's the way it's supposed to be.
So day to day, it's not something they should do at the beginning of the year, maybe mid-year, and then at the end of the year. That's 3 times in the year. So it has to be an everyday thing.
It has to be an everyday thing. There has to be someone having a department within your organization, no matter how small it is, that's their job. That's their job to see that the weather is going to be bad today. Okay, so folks need to probably sleep late or wake up later. There has to be something day to day. You cannot wait for it to happen, because once it happens, it could shut down the business. And also, quarterly report can say, well, a couple of weeks ago, or even day to day, like in the organization like yours, they will have a chat out there. Like, since the beginning of the year, the accident report is 0, it's 1, it's 2. That should be day to day report on what's going on out there with the business, with the people, with the cash flow, whatever it is that you want to work into. So it's always good to have a department for that, or someone that you hire. Your job is to take a look at the business risk that we might face or we are facing.
So is it compulsory for an organization to have a risk department? Why don't they just have consultants who come in biannually to do a risk check for them?
Absolutely, that could be done as well. You can have, say, biannually or quarterly, because again, you don't want to sit there and let the cancer already eaten into your business. You want someone that can come in quarterly, and they'll have a contact within your company that they can be working with. So you might not have someone on staff, and you still have someone out there, a consultant, who's going to be checking in, who's going to be taking a look at it from the outside. That's a possibility, and it's going to help the business to grow.
But then some people don't feel, because you listed some of those potential risks, including workforce, technology risk, and the rest of it. Some people don't look at that as risk. So why or how can they change their mindset, or how can they have a mindset to look at these as potential risk and begin to deal with it accordingly?
Well, the way to take a look at it is if it's not something that's in your DNA, that you've never done before, you don't believe in it, you don't think it's happening, we can wiggle our way into this, we've been in it before, we can come out of it. I think you're setting yourself for a big failure down the street. So the way to look at it is look in your books. What happened? Why did we pay so much for mechanics last year? Why do we pay so much? Why do we have so many vans that are damaged? Why do we have so many vans that are not working? You have deliveries to make. You have 10 vans, and now you only have 2 working. Maybe they've never been serviced. This is a risk management. Why do I have so much? My shelf is empty, and my staff are not complaining about it. Why do I have empty shelf? Maybe someone is not looking into it. That's a risk. So it's about time folks have to sit down and think, why am I not making enough money? Why is my books not tallying? Something is happening with my spreadsheet. What's going on here? Now, if you can't figure it out yourself, you might need to bring somebody in to do that for you. Again, people don't want to pay, but if you don't pay for those things, your business might have to pay for it. It's just part of business. It's black and white.
Well, Tom, let's take a quick break, catch our breath, and come back. And when
Sure.
we come back, we'll talk about some external forces that could also heightened risk in a business. Of course, we talked about infrastructure and logistics, but then
Right.
we have other issues as well, politics, for instance.
Absolutely.
Social media. So we'll talk about that in a moment.
Great.
You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television, and we're coming to you live from our studios here in Lagos. On the program today, we're looking at business development and talking about identifying and managing business risk in a volatile environment. I've been having a conversation with the Chief Executive Officer of Deon Consulting Services, Tom Olumoya. Tom will be here when I return in just a moment.